going on here? So I've been doing some self-reflection revolving around food, and I don't need my glasses to see close up, just for far away. And it just crossed my mind today that I've always, God, it looks like I'm going bald right there. Look at that. Okay, maybe I got ADHD too. Okay, so food has always been, I want to say, kind of an issue in my life, in different ways. One, sorry, I'm trying to get comfortable. I got like stacks of pillows. Okay. When I was, let's just go way back, okay? When I was little, living with my mother before she took off and left us with my grandmother, my mom told me that once my sister was born, my sister would steal my food. My sister was born when I was like 1.5 years old, right? So I probably had 1.5 years of just being the only one, eating whatever I wanted, taking my time. And then once my sister was old enough to, she started just taking my food too. So eating hers and mine. And my mom said she would have to feed us separately, so that my sister wouldn't whine or cry or complain or try to take my food. So she would feed me after her, let her go play, or feed me before her, or something like that. Okay, so when I was like 3 years old, I went to go live with my grandmother. My grandmother, she cooked food, but it was always like really spicy Mexican food. And so all I would ever really eat that I liked that she made was like beans and rice and tortillas. My grandma didn't always cook, and she wasn't always home. So there were a lot of times where me and my sister, being really, really young, maybe like 5 years old, we would be trying to make food for ourselves. I remember us pulling up a chair to the stove, turning on the stove, but we were so small that both of us could fit on the chair. One of us would stir in the cheese while the other one poured it in. Like, we were too small to do both at the same time. And because my grandmother was often gone, she would cook maybe something sometimes and let it just sit on the stove all day. And I guess in her mind that was probably like she left us food, but we wouldn't touch it because it was gross and it had been sitting there all day. We would make, like, if we could, I'd make myself like a piece of bread with mayonnaise, or eat a pickle, or whatever I could find I would try to eat. Or in most cases I would go to a friend's house and then maybe eat over there if I could. Okay, now fast forward to foster grandparents. We started spending time with my foster grandparents later, when I was probably a little older, and we started spending like weekends. Sometimes we'd spend a week, sometimes we'd spend holidays, but they were really strict, and anything that I put on my plate I had to eat, and I had to try everything that was on the fucking table. Like, they would make food, put everything on the table, and we would, like, old traditional 50s houses, we would all pile food onto our plate and eat it. If I didn't like it, it didn't matter, because I put it on my plate and I would still have to eat it. So there would be a lot of times where I would refuse to eat it and I would throw up. at the table or around the corner. And I would get my ass whooped because I didn't eat all my food. So I became very hesitant to pile any food on my plate, but I had to at least have a spoon of everything to eat it. Sometimes I would overestimate how much I could eat and be like, wow, that looks really good. I'm gonna like this. And I wouldn't fucking like it. And so I was always getting my ass whooped and throwing up. Also at my grandmother's house, I remember her cooking something one time, and she made like some eggs with onions and jalapenos or something like that. And I don't know how old I was, but I didn't want to eat it. I knew I didn't like it. I didn't want to eat it. And she was forcing me to eat it. I think she was spanking me, like really trying to force me to eat it. And she forced a spoon of food in my mouth, and I threw up in the eggs on the food. And then she was trying to force me to eat that too. Okay. And so fast forward a little further to like my teenage years. I'm 11. Now I'm living with my mother in the city in Seattle, I'm 11 and she's 26. She had me when she was 15. So she didn't really know how to cook too much. She was always partying, always out. She would go out to eat a lot. We would occasionally go out to eat with her, but she was mostly just not home. And so she never had a car. So we'd go grocery shopping like maybe once a month for a lot of food. And then that food would run out, and then we wouldn't really have any food in the house. But my mom didn't really know because she was not really home. And so I remember just going to friends' houses and just eating over there. Or we didn't have anything at the house, so I would like catch the bus to my aunt's house, or occasionally there'd be times where we lived in the same apartment complex and I would just go see if they had food. One time, so hungry, there was some bacon that had been in the fridge forever, and that's literally all that was in the fridge, is probably bacon and mustard or something. And me and my aunt Misty, who was only 5 years older than me, I was like 14 and she was 19, we cooked that bacon and we ate it, and it was old, and we ended up vomiting like the whole next day, that day and probably the next day. Sometimes me and Misty would scrounge up enough change to like go downtown, meet some older men. I would lie about my age. I had a fake ID that said I was 21, even though I was only 14, and she was 19, 20. As she got older, she could get into places, and I got a fake ID so I could go too. We would just meet men and have them take us to eat. So we started accumulating a bunch of phone numbers of people. That way when we were hungry, we could be like, hey, what are you doing? Want to hang out? And we'd be like, hey, we're hungry, and so we'd always have someone we could call to pick us up, or that we can meet so we can go eat. That became the thing that we did. And sometimes when I got a little older, so as I got older, my mom also got better paying jobs. And then so our situation got a little better. She got a little more structured and calmed down a little bit more. So when I got older, I would sometimes meet her on the bus somewhere at a restaurant to eat. Usually she'd be meeting a guy or a friend or something, and then I would meet her to eat on the bus, and then I would take the bus back to wherever I was. Okay, so when I could afford to and started making my own money to eat, I would eat really healthy. Eat whatever I wanted, pretty much. I was young. When I was in my 20s, I could pretty much eat whatever I wanted. But I became very disciplined about what I ate. I became almost a vegan at one point. I cut out all meat, all dairy. The only thing I was eating at that time was God, I cut out mayo, I cut out milk, butter, cheese. I was practically a vegan. Oh, eggs. That's the only thing I ate was eggs. I cut everything else out but the eggs. I liked eggs. For a couple years, and after that, I was a single mother. After I divorced my husband, my first husband really liked to cook, so I ate more then, but it was mostly because he wanted to eat it, and so I would cook. That was when I was vegetarian, so he would cook and I would barely eat anything anyways. So as I got older and my son got older, I started cooking, but I would mostly cook healthy stuff. My son got used to eating tofu and all of the weird shit that I was eating. And I obsessed about working out. My mom was always obsessed about my weight, about her weight. It was just like she used to model, and she was just constantly obsessed about weight. Like she would always be like, my daughter, stick your chest out and your gut in. And I was always doing fucking sit-ups. I remember being like 13 years old and doing like 300 to 500 sit-ups a day, you know, just constantly trying to be in shape. And we would eat like pizza every night because we didn't have food, but the pizza would deliver to us. So my mom would always leave us like $20 to get a pizza. And that would pretty much be like the one time we would eat at home. I got so sick of fucking eating pizza. I would eat like whatever I could at school for free lunch and then go home and eat a fucking pizza because my mom wasn't always home on time or home at all at that time. So food has always been some sort of an issue in my life, whether it's a scarcity or not. I kind of feel like as I've gotten older and more comfortable, I've experimented with more foods, but when I'm left by myself, I usually eat pretty healthy. My new husband, my current husband, he cooks really, really good, and he eats, I guess, kind of unhealthy compared to what I'm used to eating, which is like hardly nothing. And so I have developed a lot of stomach issues. I got like H. pylori a couple years ago, and a couple years before that, in my 30s, I was drinking a lot of coffee and tea and red wine, eating pretty healthy, but the red wine and coffee was causing acid issues, and I was throwing up like every day. Like I would throw up every morning after I drank my coffee. I started having a lot of nerve pain issues, and it's just been downhill ever since. Ever since I had the bacterial stomach infection, I started like seeing the doctor, you know, because I got a good job. Now I can go to the doctor. Started seeing a gastroenterologist, a rheumatologist, a neurologist, like you name it. I've seen them, and I've done all the tests in my mouth, up my butt, like everything. And they've all told me that nothing's wrong with me. I'm perfect. I have tried all kinds of medications for inflammation and neurological issues and stomach issues, and nothing has really worked. The only thing that has kind of worked is I stopped drinking coffee. I stopped drinking alcohol. I cut out gluten for a year. I have cut out so much fucking food. But it doesn't matter because the weight gain started after I started testing out different medications, which has led me to, finally, after years of just frustration of trying to figure out what's wrong with me, which is probably just childhood trauma, I decided to do the gastric sleeve surgery and another attempt to be healthy. And although it has been a challenge with like eating, it hasn't really been that hard for me because I've gone most of my life without really eating. So although I've been hungry, it's okay because I know what it's like not to have food, right? The challenging part has been the gas issues. The gas issues I feel like have gotten a little worse, but I've been doing a lot of reflection. They say that along with, weight loss, you should do therapy, and some people do the emotional eating shit. I've never been an emotional eater. I never really thought about what I ate or how healthy it was when I was a kid. I just wanted to eat. I didn't care if it was a fucking piece of bread or a tortilla or some rice. Like, as long as I ate, that's all that mattered that day. And there'd be days where I maybe ate like a couple bites of a burrito all fucking day. Like, that's all I had access to, right? So I'm used to going a day or so without eating just because. So that's not an issue for me. So I'm doing my own self-reflection therapy in my mind, kind of realizing, whoa, food has been an issue my whole life. Not because I've been fat my whole life. I've actually been in pretty good shape most of my life, except for the last 2 years have been like the worst. So now I find myself, am I gonna eat? I'll try. Okay. I was just talking about my food journey, and then you're like, "You're gonna eat any of this?" Well, I guess it's time to eat. Gotta go.